Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Bioethics Road Track podcast. I'm Reema, and I'll be your host today. Today's episode is about a really fascinating topic and affects innumerable women out there, but there is so little that is being talked about. The topic for today's episode is male centric research and its effect on women. We're joined here today by Dr. Tejaswini Pethe. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
So let's dive right into it. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little about being a doctor and an advocate for healthcare?
So hi everyone, my name is Tejaswini. I've recently graduated last year, so I'm a relatively newer doctor, but that also means my knowledge is fresh and I look at the problems in healthcare with a fresh perspective, identify the gaps in a way that somebody with more experience might not. So I really want to advocate for health literacy so that patients, especially from underprivileged backgrounds, can advocate better for themselves. So yeah.
Was there ever a moment in healthcare where you personally witnessed gender bias or the inequality that exists between men and women in healthcare?
Almost every day. So, even in OPDs and emergency rooms, the difference when a man comes in with a pain in his abdo, which is a very common complaint, versus when a woman comes in with a pain in abdo. So many times it's labeled as, oh, the woman is hysteric, or, I've actually heard a resident say these words that, oh, she must be doing this to get attention from her husband.
Yeah.
And I have never heard this being said about a man. And, so this is what really shook me as a young intern, and then since then, it's almost a regular occurrence for all of us in healthcare, I think.
Yeah, it's the intricacies that matter,
Yeah.
right? Like all of these small instances that add up to such a big impact that happens in
exactly.
women's healthcare. Now that we are talking about male-centric research being so historic, what exactly does that mean? Like, what exactly does that entail?
So, for the longest time, research has been male-centric. Let's take cardiovascular disease, one of the most prevalent non-communicable diseases there is. And it was known to be a man's disease, which is really not true. And this led to women being underdiagnosed and, taken away by doctors in OPDs, just their symptoms not taken seriously, their symptoms misdiagnosed as anxiety or just gastric issues. So, and this led to a higher morbidity and mortality in women with heart-related issues. So, that is one example, and there are many more. This is just the cardiovascular system we're talking about.
There is also the neurological system that we were talking about, neurodivergence, and how women's healthcare is women are less diagnosed with autism or ADHD because their symptoms do not present as violently as maybe men's symptoms might.
And they might not be taken as seriously. They might be labeled as mood swings, or they might be labeled as the person being difficult or something of the sort.
Do you have any examples of other diseases, textbook diseases, or even real life examples where this woman being less researched upon has had adverse effects?
Let's take the women-centered field, for example, obstetrics and gynecology. Let's talk about oral contraceptive pills. So why are there so many? So oral contraceptive pills come with the risk of deep vein thrombosis. They have other side effects like mood swings, so many metabolic side effects. There is also a possible linkage to some sort of oncology related side effects. So we are in 2026. Why is this still the case? While technology has reached to targeted chemotherapy, why are there oral contraceptive pills with so many side effects?
Definitely.
This is just one of them. And when you're explaining family planning is a very big topic in India. So there is something called the cafeteria approach, where you explain all the possible contraceptive options to women. Why are so many of them female centered? Why must the woman always bear the brunt of taking or take the responsibility for this? So
of nurturing, exactly.
Or of taking responsibility for the contraception. Why, even though vasectomy has fewer side effects, it's also known to be reversible. Why is tubectomy still more commonly done? So that leads us to think
male-centric research being so historically ingrained
in
in
society, and that reflects in healthcare as well.
From a bioethical perspective, do you think that this is just an issue of like medicine, or is it also something that relates to justice or ethics?
Well, I think it is an everyday issue that is now reflected in medicine. This has been a problem for centuries, that women are not seen as individuals. They're seen as objects, they're seen as a womb, they're seen as means to something. And of course, healthcare being one of the biggest sectors, this mentality is going to reflect. And for the longest time, healthcare was led by doctors, men in positions of privilege. So their attitude has reflected in the outcomes, in the research, in the innovations that have taken place.
And also the fact that so much of research is based on the reproduction or like reproductive aspect of females.
Exactly.
Not a lot is done on, like you said, cardiovascular manifestations or even autoimmune diseases, which are so much more common in women, but there isn't a lot of research.
Even then, autoimmune diseases and how they affect women in pregnancy are always is always a highlight.
Yeah.
I remember as a student even now studying that. I'll be studying an autoimmune disease and this is how it affects women in pregnancy. Well, a woman is more than just, someone who is pregnant.
Yeah.
So.
And are there any ongoing changes that are being made to ensure that women are no longer the forgotten people of medicine?
As I think, well, the change is slow, but it's definitely there. So as more women enter the healthcare sector, there are changes to be made. Well, very recently, there was a new instrument that was made by a scientist in the Netherlands. It was called the Lilium. So basically, the sim speculum that is very commonly used in an obs-gynae OPD. So that was actually based on something that was made by a white doctor back when slavery was still in practice. He made it, using experimenting on black women. But finally, so that leads us to the fact that why did it take so many centuries for some innovation to come into place? And that innovation has not yet come into practice, but at least it's being recognized. At least me, a doctor sitting here in India, I have had the chance to read about it and maybe think of how this, so this instrument, it's less painful, it's made of a different material, so how this instrument can be brought to India. So it's a change, it's a slow change, but it's a sure change.
That's great to hear about. And before we wrap this up, I'd like to do something fun. Do you have any suggestions or any ways that women can advocate more for their healthcare?
Firstly, I think us from the medical background would like to take responsibility that we know that there are doctors who might not take you seriously. We know that it takes, endometriosis so long to diagnose. We understand that there is a fault in the system here, but we want you to know that it is changing, and we want you to advocate for yourself and not stop fighting for yourself. And yes, the brunt of it has to be borne by the patient sometimes, and that is sad. But there are doctors who will trust you. There are doctors who will find that diagnosis, who will come to that diagnosis for you. And, so keep advocating for yourself, and the right doctor will help you out.
And lastly, do you have any message for any young doctor or young professional who might be watching this?
Definitely. I think all of us as young doctors, so, we read our textbooks and we keep gaining knowledge, which is good, but I think we need to be actively seeing what problems there are out there and what gaps there are in healthcare, in the existing system that we can fix. Because, so being a doctor, it's not just about hospitals and disease. It starts with health. So it starts with health awareness, health knowledge, health literacy. It starts with the community. So think in a broader perspective and think about what more you can do
as a doctor to help others, only than
beyond and hospitals. Yeah,
definitely. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your time. If you like this episode, please share it. And if you think if you find bioethics interesting, please have more conversations about it. And see you in the next episode.